Mrs. Turner, how many of your children would not get a balanced meal if they didn't come to your Head Start program?
Well, I would say about 3/4 of them wouldn't get a balanced meal. Yes. All right. Okay. Okay, I tell you what. Go right. She's in the restaurant.
Them that's got shall have, them that's not shall lose. So the Bible says, and it's still in news. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own.
Then that's not child get. Then that's not child lose. Then that's not child get. Then that's not child
lose. City joined hands and were one in expressing to her and to her children the grief and passion of our whole city. And that in
during my 6 months tour of duty at the Mountain Bayou Community Hospital, where I have been surgeon in charge, I have perhaps treated at least 75 children for various surgical diseases in that hospital. Of the ones who required operations or at least anesthesia, I found more than 50% of them to be anemic to such a level, and that is low blood count, to such a level that they could not be put to sleep.
Food good.
That's right, Vince.
You look great, big girls and boys.
Eat all your food. You drink all your milk?
Oh, yes, yes.
Brother hasn't been. Hasn't drunk all hers.
That's right. Ms. Turner,
Yes.
how many students do you have here?
We have our enrollment is 158.
58.
Yes.
And how many meals a day do they get?
Well, we serve them 2 meals a day and a snack.
And a snack.
Yes.
What does usual breakfast consist of that you fix?
We have scrambled eggs, grits, butter, and toast, and milk.
You don't have any trouble getting them to eat, I bet.
Well, no, not now. But when we first started, yeah, we had right smart trouble of getting them to eat that, but only eat just a small amount. But now it's hard to get them filled up.
That's very good. Where do most of the children come from that are in your school? Are they here in the area, or are they brought from somewhere else?
Well, the most of our children are brought from out in the rural areas. We do have quite a few here in town, but the most of them are out of the rural.
Would you say that they definitely get better food to eat here than they would if they didn't come?
Oh, yes, indeed. Yes.
About how many of your students you think would actually not get enough to eat if they weren't in this program?
About 3/4 of them wouldn't get enough food if they weren't in this program.
That's very good. Do you have very much absenteeism?
No, our attendance is fine.
Now, they've all had their shots, right?
Yes, yes, they have.
Preparatory school. And what's the age group of your students?
From 3 to 6 now.
3 to 6. That's very good. Well, I can see by looking at them that they're quite happy, full stomachs.
Yes, they are. Well, now, when they all started in school, we had a very bad time in getting them to eat certain kinds of food.
I see.
As you know, they weren't used to eating different kinds. But now, they get everything off their plates and ask for the seconds.
Ask for seconds. That's very good. And now these students, when they finish, will start right in the first grade here in Mountain Bayou, is that right?
Right here in Mountain Bayou, yes.
And, fine, yeah. Chuck, can you just get some cutaway questions? If you just ask it.
All right, sir. Mrs. Turner, how many children do you have here in your Head Start program?
Ask it again, would you?
Okay. Mrs. Turner, how many children do you have here in your Head Start program?
How many meals a day do they have?
How many meals a day do they get here?
You ask them what does breakfast consist of?
And what does their typical breakfast consist of?
Could you do that again and pause a little so there's space between my voice and yours?
What does a typical breakfast consist of here?
Ask it again.
What does a typical breakfast consist of here?
Do you have any trouble getting them to eat?
Do you have any trouble getting them to eat?
I think you're ready for Hollywood. I was just going to say. Is there anything else?
Don't crack me up now. Is there anything else you want to see? Oh, there is a question I'd like to ask about whether or not they get to eat otherwise. In other words, the difference between the kids that don't come here.
Okay, why don't, he's going to ask a question and get an answer now. So why don't you...
I would think that
take
everything.
a shot, or maybe...
Mrs. Turner, how many of you?
Thank you.
That was all I wanted to.
A pretty smile. Come on. That's your smile. Give us a big smile, Sandra. That's right. That's a sweet girl.
Who is that want milk? Put something in your mouth and eat anyway.
Just wait a minute, sure.
Demetrius, wait. First. Let her drink a milk first, mister.
And come up the other door.
That's right. Where did Demetrius go? That's good. Sit straight. Come around, look around. Come on this way. Big girl. Oh, you're wasting it. Laura?
Chuck roll.
And Mama really it down.
Doctor, there have been reports of widespread hunger and starvation down here. Is there starvation?
Starvation, in fact, does exist in the Delta area here in Mississippi. Of course, some members have contended that this is not so, but there has been.
Let's take it from
the help of Head Start, most of the starvation does exist over the entire county. All of those children who aren't fortunate enough or nearby these centers to receive proper nutrition naturally suffer somewhat from not getting enough to eat. I could not say exact figures how many children are malnourished, but I'd say that at least out of every, at least will have as its only meat source salt pork and a few starchy beans and very little vegetables. And this is not a balanced diet for their development. All of these children have a small degree of anemia, which is obvious on examination. Many of them come to the hospital for treatment and operations and are found to be below the normal levels of blood count.
What are the long-term effects on the physical and mental condition of children who have a diet like this?
Children, the difference in the performance of children who've been to Head Start and for this year or two have had balanced meals. There will be many stigmata in their development physically as well as emotionally and psychologically from not enough to eat.
Now, I understand it's quite common here for children to be sent to school, not necessarily for the education, but to be sure they get at least one square meal a day.
Even in the most inclement weather, you will find that children who happen in this particular district to attend a school where hot lunches are given, they'll go in rain or snow. Attendance is very good, but not because they are so anxious or eager to learn, but because mothers and children know that they will be fed. And this is, in effect, a very good thing and an outgrowth of many of the federally subsidized programs in the local school system.
Will you tell me about this case of a woman who you say asked that her children be sent to the hospital so they could get food?
And one put two of her children in the hospital. We'll start over.
Wait till this guy goes by.
One particular family that I know personally, whose child I had treated, one day the mother, three of which have severe signs of malnutrition, one has convulsions, and the others all have chronic infections at one time or the other.
Now you've been You've been in the hospital in Mound Bayou for about 6 months now. How many cases of obvious malnutrition have you seen come into the hospital in those days? And what kind of diseases do you find that result from it?
Diseases related to this are simply protein deficiencies and failure to thrive or to gain weight after operations. And these causes and things we are not quite certain as to why.
I've heard of one case of a woman and her children who were found trying to get their meal for the day out of a garbage pile. Do you know anything of that?
I really don't. I don't know that particular one.
Have you heard of it at all?
I have heard also in this case, in the same topic, from some other friends of mine, that there's a family in the area near the hospital which has so little to eat that they have to go around and look in garbage pails for their meals. We have to do that over? Okay.
Would you consider it unethical if I tell you the specifics of this case? This woman was found by the people at Head Start in January.
No.
One day in January, it was freezing cold, and she was out there with 6 children, barefoot, digging through a pile of garbage, tossing aside dead rats, looking for their meat. I mean, this is, I
would recount it.
Case.
Yeah, it's a documented case. Okay. I also, furthermore, care, I probably will not go into this time, but this is simply one of the deficiencies. Health education needs to be brought here. We also need maternal care. This mother tells me that out of all of the children she has here, only one was born in a hospital. And this was coincidentally because she was passing near the hospital at the time the baby was due. And she had no help in the way of a midwife or physician with the delivery of her other children. Another area.
Apparently then, the black people here in the Mississippi Delta feel they're not really part of Mr. Nixon's silent majority. They don't believe he really cares what they think about Vietnam. And so to them, this speech was largely meaningless. And as they see it, he might as well not have even made it. Don Farmer, ABC News in Clarksdale, Mississippi.
Them that's got shall have, them that's not shall lose. So the Bible says, and it's still in news. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own. Them that's got shall get, them that's not shall lose. Them that's got shall get, them that's not shall lose.
You see, it isn't that there isn't communication, but the only thing about Miss Nixon doesn't like what he's hearing. To expect a people to rally behind an unjust war is expecting this silent majority to commit themselves to something that they probably have no concern with. He calls for a silent majority.
Yeah, I agree with you.
The majority of people are not silent, but it really reflects the inability of the administration to get from people what they really feel and what they really want.
True.
Rather than proceeding to say, this is what I'm going to do. Now I've told you what I'm going to do. Now I want you to back me up.
Well, I think he's simply saying, the way I interpret that is just like a guy tells you, you're entitled to your opinion as long as you agree with it. One of the things I'd like to talk about is concerning the fellas that go to Vietnam. Personally, I don't feel like this is right because of the fact that when they travel to a foreign country to fight in another land that they know nothing about, then certainly I feel like they should be received better when they return to their country in terms of jobs and what have you. Now, another point is, after coming back and there are no jobs, then this cuts down on the population within this county because they have to go other places where they can find employment and where the living conditions are much better.
We've had instances of fellows that have done their duty and time in Vietnam where they have acquired a technical skill. And there was a very obvious demand for that technical skill right in Coahoma County. But because the skin color was black, they have not been given an opportunity to even apply for that type job that they used for Uncle Sam when they were in Vietnam.
Speaking in terms of jobs, the government has failed. They have failed us for years, and they are still failing us. There are too many stumbling blocks in the way in which people can get around of hiring you. They don't have to hire you just because the position is open. And I blame the government. The government, that's their responsibility to see that a person gets a job once he's out of the service.
Referring briefly to Mr. Gooden's comment on the difficulty that the young man from Vietnam has had in our area, while it is a typical situation, it is also a unique situation in that this appears to be the route that the local authorities are now taking in order to stymie or to cut off a determination by the black community that we will be free. And of course it takes many facets, boycotts, picketing, and etc. And with Smitty's position that Vietnam people are denied the right to participate in that government, we've had a situation here where people who have gone to Vietnam have been arrested for trying to get into high school with a group of youngsters who went over. But now, while Mr. Nixon's, shall we say, administrative policies are somewhat, I think, dictated to by Strom Thurmond and other Southern forces, I'd like to really recognize the fact that there are a few people, and more perhaps than I know, but definitely a few, who in the administration have tried their best to do the right thing. And of course among these people are Bruce Rabb from the White House, Robert Brown from the White House, there's Dick Murray from the Office of the Emergency Planning, there's Mr. Finch from HEW, and I certainly want to talk about Volpe, who is from the Department of Transportation. And no greater friend have we had in this administration than Jim Farmer, who is in HEW, who is trying to use all of the expertise that he's learned in the civil rights, protest, academic world to make for a better day for black Americans, white Americans, and all of us who are citizens of this country. And I want them to know that I appreciate it as well as most other black citizens.
They go to Vietnam, lay their lives on the line for a number of years, and after returning, they can't even get jobs here. There are still certain places that they are not able to go in because of the color of their skin.
The president continued to use about...
Excuse me, Doctor. Start that over. That's good. Start that over again.
Okay. One thing that intrigued me, Smitty, was the innuendo that the president used time and time again, calling upon silent majority to join with me. Now, really, I think this was an appeal to the white racist element of this nation to take a position in favor of what he wanted to do and what he was doing. Really, he was really more concerned about his overall program in Vietnam. Vietnam was really a small issue really in the total speech. But when we realize how much white racism pervades in this country, and the great majority of the citizens of this country happen to be white, to me this was a sort of dishonest kind of an appeal to it.
Yeah. See, it's a question. It's a question of priorities. If the president expects this so-called silent majority to speak, then certainly he will have to address himself to problems that confront this so-called silent majority. For instance, the priorities. We in Mississippi are suffering in the area of human relations, hunger, malnutrition, lack of adequate medical services, human relation problems, and what have you. Now, to us and to a great many of us, this is one of the priorities in this country. And if the president is going to address himself and would like for the silent majority to address themselves or in response to something that he has put before them, certainly it would appear to us that he would become involved in these areas of human concern, people concern.
That in his identification, as much a facade as it was, the term silent majority, that in this kind of subtle appeal, that he was really talking about the people that Eastland and Stennis and Whitten and Abernathy and Sonny Montgomery and Colma, you take your pick, would actually be involved with espousing.
Right. Well,
so I don't see the people that these congressmen can influence, and certainly, as you know, Mr. Nixon's big pitch right now is toward securing a base in the South among the whites, and of course this has to be from the segregationist forever crowd.
I think this was the type of appeal that he was seeking, but the thing that struck me was how could he admit, he admitted talking to some of the foreign leaders while he was touring Asia, and that most of them agreed that if Vietnam should be extended, the wall extended, that instead of using manpower from the States, he would in turn supply them with a lot of machinery and then start dumping money right into the country, when right here in America, we are suffering, more so in the South, for the things that you've mentioned already, and, this is just overlooked.
Right. Let's look at it. I think one priority that should be established when we talk in terms of the war on poverty kind of situation, whereas even when the persons hit the streets talking about the moratorium, he said that irregardless of what they said, he doesn't necessarily have to agree with them. So why would he, like hop on television and come out for an all-out appeal, that this is a bag that America has inherited and all this kind of stuff, and yet he's talking about a plan to, end the war, but yet nobody knows anything about the plan. So how can you really support this? And then when you look at your space administration, how much money it costs to put a man on the moon, and then yet Mr. Goodness speaks of the hunger and things that happened in Mississippi. So Vietnam and the Space Administration is taking priority over the hungry people. Yeah. So it seemed to me these are the things that he should be asking for support on.
So, Smitty, how did you interpret really his position on canceling the induction or the draft for the next 2 months? Now, to me, this was really an attempt to, shall we say, silence the moratorium, demonstrations, when he decides there'll be no draft, for the next 2 months. And this is an attempt to silence the college kids, give them a sugar tit for a couple
Well, when we
months.
say silent majority, I think there's no such thing as really a silent majority. I think the majority of the people have an opinion. But I think when you say a silent majority, it really reflects the inability of the administration to cope with and get the feeling of the people.
It isn't a question of, as Benny said, I think a majority of the people really being silent, really in terms of having an opinion. But he is having to deal with the blatant noise of the opposition. And certainly a majority of the people as such in this country have not identified with the moratorium, with the demonstrations. And this is really where he is aiming and hopeful that the great number of people that have not, that he can convince them to come in.
He kept saying that.
What he doesn't like, he uses this facade or this phrase of the silent.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you think that the number of years that we have had tremendous buildup in Vietnam, that the Vietnamese would become self-sustaining after, the know-how that we've been giving them, and plus the machinery and what have you, and the funds that have been poured into this country? But you think that by this time, that on his nationwide tour, that some other interesting persons would have come in and tried to do something about the Vietnam
Let me say this.
situation?
Vietnam is a very small country in the first place. We got people, but they don't have enough people. America could pour in guns, ammunition, and other supplies, but the communists could overrun this nation. They have already done it. So by simply saying that in the future, that I will not commit myself to dominize a country by manpower, but instead I will use, or you might say, technical assistance and money. Well, this is not going to solve the problem. The communists can wait. And any small nation over here that's trained up to fight, it takes men to fight the type of war that we are fighting now. Unless you want to use a nuclear, some other forms of a weapon. That would be stupid.
Let me throw another, shall we say, factor into the equation, Bourne. If a government of a country in an election by the people decides that it wants to be communist, then what's the difference in accepting that form of government, just as America accepts communism as that government that runs Russia? We're not about to jump on Russia because they want to be communist.
Oh, you can't do that.
See.
Can I throw out one question for you to talk about? I know it's hard to speak for other people. What do you think the people, the average people, the people working in the cotton fields, the people working in the gas stations, and the plumbers or the farmers, what do they think about Vietnam and about our presence there?
They think it's bad and they want their kids to come home.
Talk about it.
Unfortunately, a couple of nights ago, we had a young man who had just returned from Vietnam a couple of months ago, and
just call his name.
Leonard Montgomery.
Yeah.
And
about 30 days.
Yes, home.
And of course, he'd been involved in much of the protests going on here, and had been observed completely as the protests had gone.
Yes. So for an alleged running a stop sign, he got his head busted open by a highway patrolman, and the patrolman shot at him right in front of his mother's door. This is the type of situation that we're fighting for in Vietnam. Is this the type of progress that we are trying to make? A young man who put his life up for his country and comes home, and because he's accused of running a stop sign, he's run down, snatched out of his car, head burst open with the butt end of a pistol, and shot at in front of his door.
But Betty, don't you think that here we have really two things sort of, tied together? And I believe in mixing apples and oranges when